Welcome back to Speak Pact. We are thrilled that you are here with us today. My guest, Lauren Clement, is a seasoned speaker who has really found her way in finding her voice and her brand as a speaker, and it has worked. She's going to share her journey with us from idea to sought after speaker. So, we're going to dive into that. She is also one of her main keynotes is on leadership. So we'll talk a bit about that because it's a crowded space. So how does she stand above in that space? She's an award-winning profile builder. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. And she's a brand expert. So Lauren, welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. It's lovely to be here.
Well, I know it's like 4 a.m. where you are, so thank you for being with us so bright and early. I guess it's probably dark and early where you
No,
are right
in
now.
Australia at this time of year, it's getting light. It's we get light at stupid o'clock in Queensland in the summertime.
Stupid o'clock, blackout curtains. All things. Well, welcome. Share with me a little bit about the early days. You have an idea, you decide you want to use the power of your voice, or maybe what came first, and share a little bit about that journey.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I'm actually going to go right back to when I was little. So I grew up living in the bush in New Zealand, and I lived at a YMCA camp. So my dad was the camp director, and every week of the school holidays, we would have 360 different children arrive on a plethora of buses that would trundle down our driveway. And they'd get off the buses and they'd find their way to their cabins. And every week there'd be a new group of people. So, as a young person, I got to meet a lot of people and I got to meet people from all different walks of life. We had leaders who would come from overseas. We had leaders who were there because they'd been children at the camp and they'd grown up with the camp and then they'd become leaders. And it was like a leadership development that happened at the camp. And we lived there for 9 years and it was right in my formative years. At the time of disco, I think there were only two channels on the TV. We didn't lock our houses or our cars. We used to know when to come home because we got hungry. We spent a lot of time playing in the bush, and I was a girl guide, which I believe in America you call Girl Scouts. And there was a lot of freedom for me as a child, but I did get used to communicating with people at all different levels. So there were the young kids from very low socio areas in New Zealand who were there. There were the Polynesians and the Maoris and the Europeans, and then there were the people who'd come in from overseas, the Japanese and the Australians and
Wow.
the Europeans who would be the staff members and the leaders at the camp as well. So from a very early age, I learnt communication skills. And I learnt them in a really natural environment, which was awesome. And I had amazing parents. I can't believe to this day how they let us basically run amok. So no shoes on our feet. We'd come home from the school on the school bus and throw our bags in the corner and disappear basically until it got dark. And we could be doing anything. We could be riding our bikes. We could be fishing for eels. We could be building shelters up in the bush. We could be doing whatever we wanted. They didn't even know where we were, but they knew we'd come home, and they taught us this ability to look after ourselves.
Sounds like an
Um,
amazing childhood,
isn't that
actually.
incredible? I'm so fortunate, so fortunate. So thankfully, that's become part of our ethos in our family, but also with our own children, is creating that independence and that self-reliance. But the nicest thing about that was I lived through a period where leaders were developed. So they'd come to the camp as children. They'd enjoy their time there. They'd grow a little bit, or there'd be a bit of self development, and then they'd be invited to come back to be a junior leader and come to a camp where they could train. It was like 3 days of training in leadership and team skills and so on. And then they'd become a leader, and then they'd become a staff member. And to this day, we still have connections with people who were leaders and staff members at that camp. And that was when I was 9. I think I was 7 when I moved there, till about 15 when I moved away.
Wow, that's a
So yeah,
significant amount
so
of time.
that right in that, that real period of your life where you're forming all of your self-belief and your values and your mores. So yeah, so my speaking business very much comes from that understanding of leadership from a natural point of view. And of course, my brand is all about finding your brand true north and using that compass to give you direction. And my keynote actually follows the points of the compass.
Yeah, and
So,
I
so
want
it's a
to
really
dive
interesting way of
into
doing
that
it.
in a
Yeah.
moment, your book and how you honed into that. But before that, you're very humble in not sharing the fact that you overcame dyslexia. You're labeled with word blindness. I guess
Mm.
tell us a little bit about that. How did you go from those labels and those struggles to someone who now speaks in front of thousands of people?
I love it. Great question. So I'm sitting at the little brown school desk in the country schoolroom. There's probably only 20 other students in the class with me. And it's one of those old desks with the inkwell. I'm not old enough to know how to use an inkwell, but it had the hole in the desk that you would normally put one, right?
Yep.
And as I'm trying to look busy, because I'm really not getting it, I'm not understanding what they're wanting me to do, I notice a pair of shoes have arrived at my desk. And I try not to react to it, but he's a really good teacher and he doesn't just stop there. He comes down to my height and makes eye contact with me.
Mhm.
And he says to me, Lauren, you're really not getting this. You're not learning like the other children are. I think you've got word blindness. Now,
Mm.
it sounds like a horrible thing for a teacher to say to a 7 or 8 year old, but he knew me. He knew that if you told me there was anything that was wrong or I couldn't do it, I was going to damn well prove you wrong. And I was going to do everything I could to overcome that obstacle you'd put in front of me. So he was actually a really good teacher. And he discovered my dyslexia, called it word blindness, and he then helped me. So he'd give me a little book. It was like a little book like this size with 10 words every day written down, and I'd have to practice those 10 words. And then when I got home, I'd give somebody that book, normally mum or dad or one of my sisters or the cat if they were available. But I'd give somebody the book and they would read out the words, obviously not the cat, and I would then have to spell them back. So I learnt the shape of words and I overcame my dyslexia by forming the shape of the word in my brain
Mhm.
so that I could remember how it was spelled. And I still to this day have words that I can't spell very well. And I just try and remember the shape. But now, thankfully, we have Grammarly, we've got all these spell checking tools. It's just fantastic. But I think the way I overcame it was I forced myself to fall in love with reading. And that teacher found the fabulous land of Narnia for me. So the
Oh,
books, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, all those lovely stories. And I
yes.
read them from cover to cover. I loved the stories. So I guess the way I overcame it was I found a mentor. I found someone who could understand me and who would find what helped me individually to overcome that obstacle rather than, forcing me to do what everybody else was doing, which is a really cool way to think
What
about
a
overcoming any
smart,
obstacle.
caring teacher. If only I
Yeah.
would have had a Mr. Whoever I had Mrs. Elsky, who I was not very good at math. And
Mm,
instead of coming down to my level and relating to me where I was, she would put a big X on my paper in front of everybody and have me go in front of the room to
yeah.
solve a problem she clearly knew I could not
Couldn't do.
solve in front of everybody. And I will never forget her. I'll never forget her face or her
Yeah.
name. And I think I had to have been 7, right in those formative ages. And just to have a
Yeah.
mentor at
Yeah.
that age who really did care. Maybe he didn't even know
Absolutely.
if he was doing everything right, but at least he cared.
Yeah, absolutely. So his name was Mr. Higgett, and he wrote me a report, and I've still got it somewhere. I use it in my keynote when I'm talking about dyslexia when I was about 10 or 12 years old. And he put on the bottom of it, if I had a class full of Laurens, there's no end to what we could achieve. And I still get goosebumps reading that comment. I know it's amazing, isn't it? And I
Yes.
think it's just that determination to succeed and to never give up. That resilience was always there. So yeah, I think we're blessed if we have those sorts of people in our lives. I'm sure I had awful teachers as well. I know we had Squirmy Shermy who used to like look down the girls' tops when he leant over their
Yeah.
desks. Those are the back in the day. But yeah, we all had those influences in our life. And yeah, I think people undervalue the impact you can have, especially on young people. It's just
Well, it speaks to
extraordinary.
the power of mentorship, and you
Mm,
mentor leaders throughout the globe on finding their true north. First, you
mm,
needed to find yours. So, what
yeah.
was your path to finding your true north?
For speaking specifically, Antoinette, or what?
For what you became known for your brand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So What I do know is that, and because I've been in branding for such a long time, I was working in brand management since before the internet, which shows how really old I am. What I know is that you have a very, very short window in order to capture people's attention and to get your message across. So back in the day, we would create television commercials that were 15 seconds long.
Mhm.
That was because the TV cut that up into that period. So every 15 minutes, a television show would stop and an advertising block would come in of a couple of minutes. And you had 15 seconds in order to get your message across and captivate somebody. Same on the radio, same in the newspaper. You had like a column square inches that you had to use. So we were very restricted on how long you had to get your message across. And back before the internet, it was also very expensive. To get on TV was extraordinarily expensive, and only the big brands could do that. And then came like the cable shows and things, and all of a sudden everybody had that access and so on. We're very fortunate today to be able to have our own radio stations, our own TV stations at virtually no cost, which is just extraordinary. But because of that, there's so many of them. There's so many podcasts, so many YouTube channels that you can follow. There's so much content out there. And with the event of AI, the content manufacturing is just 10xing. It's just ridiculous. So, because of that overwhelm that we have, it's even more important now that you are really clear on what you do, who you are, how you help people, and what you can do for somebody. If you can't get that across in 15 seconds, then you've lost them. It's too hard. If you're still talking and explaining what it is you talk about as a speaker or how you help people, and there's 2 minutes later, you've lost people. It's just too hard. So I guess the way I found mine was, again, I had good mentors. So I worked with a couple of amazing guys at a company called Mainstage. And I'd done a lot of speaking. So I'm a professional speaker. I'd done speaking on stage. I'd been touring the country speaking and so on for many years. But it wasn't until I met these two guys who taught me that speaking is a business, and they taught me the background as to how to really position yourself. And it's funny because I'm a brand specialist. I know all about positioning, but I'm a little bit like the plumber with a leaky tap. I don't know how to do it for myself. So, and you need that person taking that helicopter view, don't you? Looking in from the outside at what you're doing. And they basically, when I told them my story, and they went, "Well, you're the brand navigator. You help people find their direction. You give them a clear directions to what they're doing." And I thought back and I went, "Well, you're right," because every single time I'd spoken or I'd run workshops and I'd got feedback from people, and I asked them, "What was it you got from my talk? What was the biggest thing?" Most of the time, 80, 90% of the time, they would say clarity and direction. You got rid of all the overwhelm, and I know what I need to do now. So that's how I built my brand around being the brand navigator. I use the compass from my background living in the bush. It just makes so much sense. And I talk about magnetic leadership, which, as you said before, leadership's a big topic that everyone wants to talk about. But it's also a topic that lots of people search on. So if you're
And
looking
need.
for you're looking for a wellness speaker, or I'm looking for a diversity speaker, or an AI speaker, or a leadership speaker. So you need that thing that people are searching for, and then you need to make it unique. So it's not just leadership, it's magnetic leadership that I talk about, going from distraction to attraction.
Attraction. Okay. And I've heard you say something along the lines of make it easy to be found. You have a better
Mm,
way of saying that. And I absolutely love that you hone into that. I love these two men that you're talking about. I haven't met them, and I don't know their program, but I relate to it.
mm,
At WPC Speakers Global Agency, we are all about taking your message and creating a business. I think a lot of speakers embark on the world of speaking almost like a side hustle,
mm,
even though they say they want to be a they want a good part of their revenue model to come from speaking. They still don't treat it like it's a business. When it's one of the first things you need to do when you're starting a new business, you need to brand it and set it
yeah.
apart from those other businesses. And I love that you boiled it down to brand navigator. That's so clear. I can see, yeah, I'm pretty intelligent human being. I've got a bunch of different skills. How do I navigate to that brand that people are going to
Mm,
relate to? Right. And
mm,
you help do that. You also said, we were speaking earlier, you talked about the hearing some young, new, I call them know-it-alls, who, maybe took a weekend class somewhere and now she's out there telling everyone that they don't need to pick a lane. They could just
Mm,
be whatever, all things to all people. Let's talk
mm,
a little bit about that. Why does that not work? Why
yeah.
foundationally does that not work?
Yeah, it's that fabulous word that I love because we say it so differently to y'all in the States. So we call it
I'm in
niche.
Texas, so that's it. That was
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah, we call it niche. You call it niche. There's no T in niche, but regardless, I'm not going to correct anybody. It's the same thing. So yeah, this it was funny. This influencer chatting away talking about don't niche, don't put yourself in a box. It's too hard. Do everything. Create lots of content on it. And I've made a comment on her post saying. Niching is not about restricting the type of content you talk about or limiting yourself as to what you do. That's not what niche is. Niche is making it instantly accessible for people to understand how you can help them. And it's exactly that. It's just being known for doing something really, really well. And you cannot be everything to everyone. There's a saying in New Zealand, you can't help every Mary in the dairy, right? And it's so true. You cannot do that. And it's one of the biggest lessons, and I'm sure you teach your clients as well. Choose who your audience is. Who do you want to impact the most? What's your legacy? What do you want to be known for? And then do multiple things. I call it having an umbrella brand. I mean, you can have lots of different things you do. You can write books, you can run programs, you can do mentorship, you can speak on stage, you can run. I mean, I run an agency that helps people enter and win awards to build their profile alongside my speaking. But as you say, Antoniette, it's all about your approach to it, your mindset. There's a number of people that I know who've gone through the same training that I did in terms of turning their speaking into a business, who by the end of it have said to me, oh, I don't know if I want to be a keynote speaker. And I've gone, oh, why is that? You were so positive about it and you just want to share your message. Oh, it's just too much hard work. And it's like, yes, like any business, you have to invest in it. You have to constantly be getting out there. And there's this misnomer, isn't there, that if you get yourself an agent, they will get you lots of bookings. And really, unless you are like a very famous person or you've done something absolutely phenomenal, there's an amazing woman I work with who sailed round Antarctica single-handedly, Lisa Blair. She's amazing. She's so inspirational. She's crazy, but she's just so inspirational. And she will get speaking gigs just totally down to the fact of what she's done, regardless of how good her presentation is, which she's very good on stage. But regardless of all that, she will get paid to speak because of what she's done in this amazing feat. She's got her thing now. Her thing is talking about that resilience and saving the planet and all that sort of stuff because she's a sailor and so on. But if you don't have a thing, you don't know what it is you really want to be known for, you haven't figured out your audience, and you go to an agent and you say, oh, I'm a keynote speaker, get me some gigs. The first thing they're going to say is, well, what can you do for me? What can you do for my audience? How can I guarantee if I put your name forwards for this conference, how can I guarantee you're actually going to show up and do a good job? Given that you haven't been on stages, I don't have a good sizzle reel of you. I don't have experience from what you've done in the past. You don't have any testimonials. You don't have a landing page. You don't have a one sheet. You don't have a rider. You don't have images of you and video of you actually delivering. So how on earth would I book you? So yeah, you've got to prepare all of that foundational work. And I would say, Antoniette, probably 80% of my bookings as a speaker come direct. They don't come from agencies. 80% is people
Because
who
you've
find me. And I
carved
say,
out that niche
yeah,
so well.
yeah.
You are just singing my song all over the place because I'm loving this. I'd like to unpack a couple of things that you said. Where to begin? Okay, the first thing that you talked about was treating speaking like a business, right?
Mm,
Yes, get an agent, get 5 of them,
yeah.
get on bureaus, get on 20 of them, right? If you are going to be that prosperous speaker, you probably need an average of 3 to 5 high value engagements per month. I don't know of one agent that's going to be able to do, because they've got other people they're getting on stages. So it's a combination of that, a combination of very smart branding, and getting yourself found, getting out
Mm,
there and doing the elbow grease yourself. If you're really serious about it, you've got to have that business foundation, all the unsexy software that goes into that, all of the unsexy, right? If you're really serious about having that pretty fabulous speaker life. So thank you for bringing that to the table, because it's good to, I mean, it's one thing for an agent to say that, but it's really good to hear it from a speaker who's now on the other side. Somehow you figure that out along the way. You put your
mm,
elbow grease into it, and now that that forward moving churn that it takes in those beginning years is now coming back to you.
mm,
Now there's incoming, which that's where you want to get to. But if it were easy, everybody would do it, right? Most speakers give up 10 pitches in when it needs like 50 pitches a day. We have a system where our clients are each pitched a minimum of 25 times a day, which
mm,
turns out to be about 400 times a month. If they
mm,
want those consistent engagements, you can't do that. The speaker themselves can't do that. There needs to
mm,
be a bit of an ecosystem, a bit of a business ecosystem, just as if you were going to open a storefront, right? Whatever it might be. There's, you put
mm,
people in place, put the branding in place, you get the materials, the equipment. It's a whole thing, but it's so worth it if you're
mm.
willing to put that in, because most speakers are not
Yeah.
willing to put that. They just, hey, I have a fabulous talk. If
Mm,
I build it, they will come.
mm,
Right?
mm,
No,
mm,
no agent is going to take you unless you have those consistent 10, 15, $25,000 talks,
mm,
because it takes a lot of touch points just to get you booked for one engagement. So if that agent's getting 20, 25%, it has to be worth it for them to
mm,
put in all of that effort until you do become that speaker who is sought after and known. But that takes some work, and most agencies aren't going to do that for you. They'll do it with you,
mm.
they're not
Yeah.
necessarily going to do it for you. So thank you for bringing that to the table. That was so good. And then the way you talked about niching,
Mm,
not sticking yourself in a box.
mm.
I find the same pushback when it comes to signature talks. And
Yes.
to me, to say a signature talk is basically like saying a brand that you
Mm,
snap back to. Doesn't mean there isn't a whole lot you can do in that in terms of emphasis, titles. Like one signature talk can be 1,000 different talks
mm,
based on how you title it, emphasize it, kind of tweak it for whatever audience you're going to be in front of. But you've got to snap back to that
mm.
core that people know what they're going to get when they get Lauren, right? When they
Yeah.
go to a Lauren, to an event that you're putting on or a talk, they go because they know they're going to get fed that nourishment that already moved the dial for them, and they just want to take it that much further. So thank you for unpacking that. There's more. I can keep going on, but I want to give you the I want to give the stage
Yeah,
back to
it
you.
is interesting though, isn't it, that the big thing you've got to think about, and I'm particularly good at putting myself into the shoes of my audience. So who am I talking to? What's their problem? What do they need? So someone who books a speaker, be that an agent or someone running a conference or whoever it is, whoever books you, they're very risk averse. So they just want to know, if I'm putting you in front of my audience, that you're going to do a good, you're going to show up, you're going to show up early, you're going to be on time, you're going to be dressed well, you're going to present well, you're going to give my audience really great insights, they're going to give you lots of aha moments, they're going to love you, they're going to enjoy the time, they're going to have fun, whatever it is. But I also want to know that the impact you make on my audience is going to last, so that months after they've heard you speak, they're still around the water cooler talking about it. They're still implementing those things they've learned, right? Especially as a keynote speaker. It's those little, like maybe two things out of your whole hour talk that everybody in the room relates to, and they're all using it later on. And it's quite funny. Some speakers have a thing that they do every single signature talk. Like there's one amazing speaker I know, and she talks about the Kit Kat moment. And if she gave a presentation without mentioning the Kit Kat moment, people would wonder why it wasn't there, right? And she's done it over and over and over again. There's lots of things I do in my presentation, and people look forward to me doing it. And when I haven't done it, they stand at the back of the room and go, why didn't you do that thing? That thing was really cool last time I spoke. And it's like, oh, I thought you'd already seen that. Yeah, but I want to see it again. So, never get bored with it. So, signature speech, absolutely. The cool thing I've found as well is the ability to get booked from the room. So,
Hmm.
every single time I speak, I hang around afterwards. A as a help to the organizer so that people from the room, I never ever do Q&A at the end of my keynote because it ruins the vibe. It's a pointless way of ending any keynote presentation is because you always get Sharon from accounts who just doesn't really have a question, but I'd just like to tell everybody how wonderful it is to be here. You don't want that. So you want to end on a high note. You tell the organizer, I'm going to be here. I'm going to stick around in the morning tea break. I'm going to be here. People can come and see me. They can ask me questions. I can sell my books, whatever it is. I can talk to people. So that's when you get people saying, oh, you know what? We're looking for someone to come and run leadership training inside our organization, or we're looking to run a conference next year and we're looking, are you available? So you get bookings from the room. So one of the key things that I've done, and it's something I've learned from other speakers and working with specialists, is I've got a signature speech that takes people around the whole compass, west, east, south, north. And it's a different element of your brand, your personal brand that I talk about. What I've learned from that is that I can also offer that as a 4-part program
Hmm.
so that people can just get west or they can just get east and they can do all 4 parts over the year. And also, the other thing I've learned is that I can cut that down to being just a 2-hour workshop that I can run with people. So, what you've got to do is be able to be flexible enough as a speaker to work with the way that your booker, your client, wants you to work. But at the same time, have that signature keynote speech ready to go. It doesn't need slides, it doesn't need practice, it doesn't need any preparation, and you just know it. And you can go and deliver it and know you're going to absolutely knock it out of the park for people because that's the type of insurance policy, I guess, that people who book speakers want. They want to know that you're going to deliver and you don't have, then the last thing they want is at the end of the conference to have people going, why did you have that awful person who couldn't present and used millions of dot points and read the slide? We could do that in the office on a Wednesday with Jim. He's hopeless at presenting. They don't want that. They want people at the end of the conference or the end of the event to go, oh my God, that was so good. I've enjoyed myself. I'm so glad I came out of the office. I'm so glad I paid to be here because I got so much out of it. That's what they want.
Okay, there were some big bookmark moments in there. I don't want to gloss over them because rewind, guys, rewinds. Some of the rewind moments in here that I definitely don't want to gloss over that I hadn't heard before. And I actually really love this whole concept. It would definitely end on a high note. I've heard that, but what did that actually mean? You clarified that in a beautiful way. So we often think ending with Q&A is a fabulous thing. You really capitalize on that. I love your approach to that. You let the organizer know you're going to stick around and you will have Q&A, but more in an informal, kind of more personal
Mm.
way. You don't end on that because you're right. Somebody can just derail your whole talk and all those nice, lovely, after flavors when you have a nice glass of wine are just gone, right? Because somebody just, I don't know, gave you a glass of water or and so you lose it. You don't really get to linger in that. So you allow
Mm.
them to linger in some of those transformative moments that they've gleaned from your talk, and then they can come and speak to you. You can introduce the fact that you've got these other programs, book. I love that you are keen on a talk is really just the first step in a journey, right?
Mm.
There's
Mm.
further to go with you, deeper to go with you. Ah,
Yeah.
so beautiful. And then another rewind moment that you mentioned before that was the risk aversion. And
Mm.
these organizers are risk averse because their job
Mm.
is dependent on
Yep.
being a rock star for choosing
Mhm.
you. You've
Yep.
got to make yourself the sure bet. You have to make it so clear in their minds that you're going to deliver real transformation for that room. And they are going to have those water cooler moments uh, because every time they praise you, they're actually praising the organizer who
Mm.
brought you in. Those are two
Mm.
very important concepts that you brought to the table. Thank you for those. Lauren.
You're very well. I mean, it's not about making yourself look good as a speaker ever, isn't it? It's about making the organization or the person who booked you look good. That's, you've got to keep that in the front of your mind the whole time. It's interesting. I would say there's probably three things that you need if you are an emerging speaker and you want to be successful, right? One of them is passionate, of course. Most speakers are passionate about what they speak about, but you have to be passionate about your business as well as about your presentation and what you're talking about. So you have to be, because it's going to be hard, as you say, pitching to 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 different organizations in a year to try and get you speaking books. That's hard work. So you've got to be passionate about your business. Number two, you have to be patient. Oh my goodness, if I could go back in time and tell myself this. The other day I had a telephone call, I actually had an inquiry through my website from an agency. And I went, oh, that's interesting. What does she want? She wanted to talk to me about my fees for speaking at an event. So I never answer on email. I got on the phone and I spoke to her and we were chatting away and I said, oh, it's been a long time since we spoke. When did we first connect? And I went onto my CRM system and it had on it, I think it was August 2023. So it was over a year since I first reached out to that agency and sent them my pack and my book. And I do keep updating like postcards and things. I keep in touch with them, but it had been a year since we'd made that first contact and she'd never booked me for anything. And I said to her, why now? What's happened? You know, what's changed that all of a sudden you want? And she said to me, I just see you everywhere. You're all over LinkedIn, you're winning awards, your book is out, your clients are talking about you, you're speaking on all these stages. And I went, oh, that's really interesting. Thank you very much. So you have to be patient. You have to be constantly getting great examples of you speaking and testimonials and articles and all that sort of stuff. You need to be doing that constantly and being patient with what you're doing. And the third thing I think you need to have is a purpose. Why are you even doing this? So yes, it's a lovely idea. I can earn, $20,000 standing on stage for 60 minutes. It sounds like a great gig. I get flown places around the world to speak. Sounds wonderful, right? That's a nice purpose, to have a nice life. My happy place is on stage. I love being up there on stage. I like I say, go back to those days at the YMCA camp when I had a big audience of 300 and something different children every week. Same thing. I love impacting others. I love being on stage. I love telling stories, and I love having people afterwards going, oh my God, I had so many light bulb moments. You've really helped me. I love that. I'm addicted to that because the impact and the flow on effect that you have is just phenomenal, right? But you also have to have a purpose with your branding and with who you are and who you want to speak for. So what's the impact that you want to have? Who do you want to influence? What's the reason why you even have your keynote presentation? Who do you want to help? What's the outcome that you want to have? I think if you've got that purpose, that helps you just keep going. I'm in this. I'm in this for the long run, and I want to make a go of it. I think those three things: passion to even be there, purpose so you know why you're there, and then making sure you're productive and you're getting out there and you've got that patience just to keep going, and keep sticking around long enough for people to notice you. Those things will get you there.
Those are so keystone, and I got a lot more than three out of that. So thank you for all of it. So passionate. Obviously, there's going to be hard days, and it's going to be the passion that's going to keep you going.
Yeah.
Patient. There's going to be hard days, so you need that patience and that kind of perseverance. Another P word. I like the way you said, be as passionate about your business as you are about your presentation. We get all romantic about our presentation, right? But we don't get so romantic about the business side. And that's really what's going to carry you and give you that speaker life. So foundational. And then basically be present. You keep yourself memorable. Yeah, you give a fabulous talk, but you're also sending those postcards and being omnipresent so that you are rememberable, right? Findable. Had you not, you may have just kind of flittered off into her distant memory, and she wouldn't have thought about you when that engagement came along that was the right fit for you. So much goodness there. Okay, about this time in the show, I know that the Speak Pack listeners are going to want to know, how do they find Lauren Clement? And tell us a little bit about your book too.
Yeah, absolutely. So Finding Your Brand True North is available on Amazon. You can listen to it as an audio book as well. If you like my voice, you can listen to that. And it's really a guidebook, takes you through that compass of finding your personal brand, and gives lots of examples of some of the big brand stories and the stories behind like Nike and Domino's and so on, but also some boutique brands and some personal brands as well. So yeah, so you can find that book there. Finding Your Brand True North is basically my brand, but I also run the Audacious Agency, and that's where we help speakers and professionals and entrepreneurs and thought leaders to enter, win, and leverage business awards. And someone said to me the other day, "Do you think having an award helps you get booked as a speaker?" And I went, um, no, I don't know whether it actually is a reason why you'd get booked. You don't get people looking for, oh, I need an award winning expert, right? You don't get people searching for you for that. However, now that you know the risk averse, nature of people who book you, to be sitting there and have a couple of different brochures of keynote speakers, and one of them has written, multiple books, award-winning books. They're a best-selling author. They've won awards for the topic that they talk about. It's just going to give you that level of credibility that'll make you the one they choose. And if you're constantly seen celebrating success, you're on the red carpet, you're collecting awards for what you do, it just levels up your profile. And so it does often become that differentiating factor, but it also gives you something to talk about, because you can talk about your journey and what you love about what you do and the impact that you're having. And I call it branding by association, Antoniette. It's that real, if you're there, and it's funny, there's a funny story. One of the speakers that I know, he's very awesome. He runs a big networking organization in Australia called BX. It's like a business exchange type networking thing. He has his own awards, the BX Awards, and we spoke on stage together, talking about the value of awards for people's businesses. And he told me the story. He used to have a Subway franchise. So I'm assuming everyone knows what Subway is, a fast food
Big
takeout place.
sandwiches, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So he this years ago, and he said he went to the conference at the end of the year, and they're sitting around the table, all dressed up, suit and tie, nice sort of evening, and he just as a laugh picked up the centerpiece from the table. It was like candles or flowers or whatever, and he just posed with it, and somebody took his photograph, and he put that up on social media, and he put on there, "I'm so impressed to be here with my team. They've done an amazing job this year. It's lovely to celebrate with them. Here's to success for next year," or whatever. Put that up on social media. Within seconds, he had people congratulating him on his win. And all he was holding was like the centerpiece from the table, right? So just being part of that awards environment, just having those logos on your website, those little laurel leaves with, speaker of the decade or whatever it is, having those leadership expert, whatever you want to call yourself, with those laurel leaves, it just elevates you as a sure thing for the person who's booking you. So yeah, so the Audacious Agency is out there as well. I do all sorts of stuff with webinars and got it. If you look on the internet for me, you'll find me, because if I didn't have a very good personal brand as a personal branding expert, it wouldn't be very good, would it? It wouldn't be a good look. So you'll find me online.
So it's Lauren, Lauren, Clement, Clemett, two T's. So, Lauren, you said something that was fabulous. You said many things that were fabulous, but one of the things was with the awards. I'm so with you. It may not be the thing that initially gets you the gig, but it can be your deciding factor of whether or not you get the gig. But even a step further than that, it really differentiates you between a $5,000 speaker and a 15 or $20,000 speaker, right? Because
Mm,
these organizers, they choose you, but they usually will choose you alongside maybe two or three other choices. They've got to take it back to their people.
yeah.
And you are so absolutely right. If they can say, well, listen, Lauren, she's won these awards, she has these best-selling books, she does speak on leadership, and then this other leadership coach, he was once a CEO a long, long time ago, and here's his reel, right? And another, probably all three of you are pretty darn good speakers, right? But what's just that edge? What gave you that bit of edge that's going to get not only get you the gig, but also quantify that you can get that higher paying
Mm,
engagement?
mm. Yeah, that's a good point. It is that justifiable reason, isn't it, to have someone there. And Maybe it's the difference between flying them in first class or, sitting in coach. I don't know. But yeah, I like that perception around the value of the speaker or the value of the person that you have. Gosh, if they've written a book, they must be good. But if they've won awards for what they do, oh my goodness, they must be extraordinary. So yeah, it's a good point.
And it's probably the difference between getting that keynote stage or getting the breakout room,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Because you
yeah.
might win the gig, but did you win the gig? So I love that you and your agency focuses on awards. I probably have to have a conversation about that with you, because we help our speakers apply for awards, but that's your focus, your specialty.
Yeah.
So we'll have to have another conversation on that. As we close, our signature question. Talk about that. Real quick, I'm going to take a little sideline here. I love that you also noted that there should be a through line in every one of your talks that you're known for. I know of a certain speaker who always wears a fedora. I know of a speaker, you probably know of him, Eric Qualman, who always has lime green glasses, and he actually
Mhm.
puts a pair of lime green glasses on everybody's seat, for the talk, and people really want those lime green glasses. I know a podcaster who decided to rebrand, and he always had this certain way of closing out his podcast. And when he stopped saying that set of words, his listeners were like, "Wait, where did that go?" Like, the people are creatures of habit. You
Mm,
go to a restaurant, you get your favorite dish from that particular restaurant. You go to that restaurant for that dish, and if they mess with it too much, you're like, "I'm going to have to find another restaurant, right, for that favorite dish." Don't don't mess with what's working. Like, what
mm,
people, if they're connecting onto something, um, keep that through line. It doesn't get old for them. It might get a little old for you because you hear yourself over and over, but they need that. They need that identification piece that connects them
mm.
to you. So I love that you said that. And so, my signature question at the end is, that this is Speak Pact, and we are on a collective mission, you, me, and the Speak Pact audience, to make the greatest impact that we can with the power of our voices. What is that one more gem that you can give this audience to help propel them to that level of just high influence, high impact with the power of their voice?
I love it, Antoinette. It's been fabulous to be here, by the way. And it is a bit ironic. I've got a touch of laryngitis on a podcast all about speaking, where you talk about having a voice. It's been quite fun today. Thank you so much for having me here. I think that the thing I'd like to make sure everybody understands is that you have the most amazing gifts and talents. You've got an incredible story. You've got some sort of experience that's happened to you that you have now turned that into a keynote and you want to share that with the world. You've got a message. The worst thing you can do is be the world's best kept secret.
Mm.
And we deserve, everyone who is on this journey to be an awesome keynote speaker, you deserve to have that limelight. You deserve to be well known, well paid, and wanted for what you do. Most of it is mindset. Most of it is self belief and knowing that you've got something extraordinary that the world needs. So the minute you keep tapping back into that and going back to your foundations of why you're here, what your purpose is, what you're here to deliver, that will get you through anything, and it will encourage you to keep going regardless of how many no's, how many times you get turned down, how many times you don't get selected to speak on the stage. And we've all done it. We've all sat in an audience somewhere and looked at the pole turtle on stage. You know what a pole turtle is?
Mhm.
So a pole turtle is, a farmer was driving along one day and he saw a turtle stuck on top of a pole at his farm, right? On top of a post, just sitting up there. And the farmer goes, how on earth did he get up there? Who put him up there? He's got no point being there. He doesn't know what he's doing up there. He doesn't belong up there. We've all thought that in an audience listening to a keynote speaker. They don't know what they're doing. I don't know who put them up there. They shouldn't be up there. It's wrong. I could do a better job than they could, right? We've all done that as speakers. So if you've got that fire and that passion and that reason and that purpose, don't ever let anyone tell you no. Don't let anyone ever tell you you can't do it and you won't do it. Keep going back. The more you can keep in touch with the people who will book you to be on stage, the more likely they will remember you, they'll recall you, and the more niche you can be with your messaging, and the easier you can make it for people to understand what you talk about and who for, the more booked you'll get. So never give up, get really focused, and zero in on make you the expert.
Fabulous way to close. Stop being the best kept secret. I call them the hidden gems out there.
Mm.
No one will promote you the way that you're going to promote you.
Oh,
You can have a bunch of people out there championing you and helping to get the word out that you exist.
mm,
But if you're sitting around and not doing your part in that, it's not going to be as
mm.
effective. So it was such a beautiful way to close today. There was so much value that you offered the Speak Packed audience. I can only imagine seeing you on stage. Hopefully, one of these days I'll get to actually be a, in, a member of your audience. Thank you for all that you bring to the table. And everyone, look up Lauren Clement.
Thank you, Antoinette. It's been a blast. And I love what you do to help other speakers. It's so important to have those mentors and those guides and those people in your corner. And you do such a fabulous job.
Thank you so much. And your way, beautiful Speak Packed audience, to give Lauren and me some flowers for the time that we've spent with you today is to post it forward. Go ahead and share this. If you got some value out of it, certainly people within your circles will get value out of it. So give us the love, the likes, the comments, but most of all, do that for you and the people that are around you. So for now, ciao, ciao. Okay, so much fun.
Awesome. Oh my goodness, we're going to talk for hours.